It was my first marriage and Grace's second. It all started out pretty standard, just like any other person. Meetings, dates, flowers, chocolate, walks, common interests, feelings, love. Grace didn't have any children from her first marriage, and to be honest, that was a plus for us. I asked her about it once, but her answer was vague, something like, "We just didn't work out." I shrugged my shoulders. Well, if it didn't happen, then it didn't happen. When we met, she was only 28. What problems could there be? In fact, I thought it was the perfect age. She had some experience, she was balanced, the carefree days were behind her, and she wasn't old yet. Perhaps she was in her prime, and Grace seemed to agree with her. So, we were in no hurry to have children. We decided that we would enjoy life first. Most of our money went toward traveling. We went abroad several times a year, either alone or with friends. But as time passed, Grace's demands started to grow. So when I finally brought up the idea of having kids, she brushed it off angrily, insisting it still wasn't the right time. By our 4th wedding anniversary, we were still young, full of energy, childless, and doing all right financially. Grace was working from home, and I was still stuck as your average office worker. It wasn't until the 5th year of marriage that I got a glimpse into Grace's past. One evening, out of the blue, her childhood friend showed up at our doorstep. Pretty typical situation. A knock at the door, and in walks an unexpected guest. Grace, however, didn't exactly greet me with a smile when she came out to see who it was. There was an awkward pause, some forced hugs, and then, over tea, we learned that her friend had run into a tough spot and needed a place to crash for the night. I could tell Grace wasn't thrilled about it, but I couldn't bring myself to turn the girl away, especially not when this was my chance to peek into a part of Grace's life that she had kept pretty tightly sealed. While Grace was busy preparing dinner, her friend, and I struck up a conversation in the kitchen, cracking open a bottle of semi-sweet white wine. After dinner we went through another bottle, and soon I was sent downstairs to grab a third before the shop closed. The evening was, unexpectedly, a lot of fun and gave me some interesting insights. Grace, by the way, was showing a whole new side of herself. Honestly, I couldn't figure out what she'd been hiding. But when I got back, the scene I walked into was chaos. The two of them had clearly fought. Our guest was hurriedly getting dressed, while Grace was on the floor, picking up the shattered pieces of a plate. I had no choice but to intervene, ushering them into separate rooms. We agreed that the guest would leave in the morning. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I wandered into the hallway, fumbled in the dark, found a pack of cigarettes in my pocket, and slipped out to the balcony through the kitchen. To my surprise, there she was, our unexpected guest, still a bit tipsy, gazing at me with this strange, almost sorrowful look that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't help but break the silence. "Everything okay?" I asked, more to fill the uncomfortable pause than out of real concern. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks." She smiled, taking another drag of her cigarette. "How long have you two been together?" "Married, I mean," she asked. 4 years. Almost 6 if you count the whole time. She gave me a sly grin. "Ah, I see. So that's the kind of guy you are. A reindeer." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "So, she cheated on her first husband with you. You're not worried history might repeat itself?" I raised my voice a little. "I don't understand." Grace was already divorced when we met. Our next words hit like a punch. Grace was married. And pregnant. She had a late-term abortion before she left him for you. She poked me lightly in the chest. "You didn't know, did you?" "Well, now you do." Grace is a good person, but, as they say, the fish always swims to deeper waters. She's always been after someone richer. Seems like she found her catch, but she's holding back, doesn't want to upset the balance. I stubbed out my cigarette, turning to leave. It was all too much to process. Then I heard her throw out one more casual line through the flick of her lighter, vanishing into the cold air. Or maybe she just can't have kids anymore. I stopped, whipped around. Why did they fight earlier? Was it because of this? She shook her head. No, it was about Grace's ex-husband. I came to tell her that my brother passed away. He left her a cottage in his old will. And frankly, I think it's unfair. She should refuse. You see, they broke up because of me. My brother found out about her affair, demanded a paternity test, and Grace, well, she took matters into her own hands. She stared straight into my eyes, not breaking the gaze, waiting for it all to sink in. And oh, it did. The child could have been mine. You need to leave by dawn, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. No problem. She smiled, stubbing out her cigarette and slipping past me through the balcony door. I stood there frozen. If what she said was true, then how many years did I spend living a lie? And was there any hope of rebuilding something that started with deception? That night, I crashed on the kitchen couch. Sleep wouldn't come. And by the time morning rolled around, my head felt like it was splitting open. At dawn, the girl from the past left as quietly as she'd come, offering a quick apology and a pat on the shoulder before disappearing from my life. The conversation that followed with Grace was the one I'd been dreading. Divorce was clearly looming in the distance. When I confronted her, she didn't deny a thing. She just sat there in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks. I talked and talked, asking questions, demanding answers. But she didn't say a word. It felt like I was talking to a statue, not a person. The only sign of life was those salty streaks running down her face. It was all true. Grace remained mute, but I could feel the anger burning inside her. I lost control. Before I knew it, I'd leaped up and grabbed her by the shoulders, shaking her. She sobbed, her head slumping back against the wall. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to let go. I loosened my grip, and she slid down to the floor. Through her tears, she whispered, "It's the truth," she confessed. She'd cheated on her first husband with me, and then cheated on me with him. She admitted that she had tried to pin the baby on her husband, but when he found out, she chose to cut ties and start fresh with me, not wanting to know whose child it actually was. But we're good together. We can still fix this. I can still have kids. If you want, we can try right now for a son or daughter. She was desperate. I recoiled, horrified. Panic hit me like a wave. Her hysteria was spiraling, and I knew I had to call for help. The calm, silent Grace I'd known for years had suddenly turned into a raging fury. The doctors came, sedated her, and took her away. For the next 6 months, I couldn't even file for divorce because of her breakdown. When the court finally granted it, the female judge couldn't resist a sharp remark about vows of in sickness and in health. Grace returned to her hometown after that, and I never saw her again. I've heard rumors she started drinking, but I hope to God they're not true.